Hey folks, debugging functions worksheet 1. It's very important as a beginner Python coder, computer programmer, to realize that there are usually 2 or 3 or 4 types of errors that occur in computer programs. The most agreed upon type of error is syntax error. And a syntax error is simply one that usually stops the program from executing. It has to do with spelling a keyword wrong, like the word def in Python is what you use to begin a function. And if you were to spell it with the word define, it would be a syntax error. On this particular worksheet, there is one error per exercise, and it's your job to find it and annotate it, fix it, and then rewrite the code over here in this box provided. So in the example where there are 5 errors, syntax error examples are define, should have been spelled def like you see here. And these print statements must be indented for them to work in Python. Okay, so moving on. The other type of error that's very common in computer science is a logic error. And logic errors usually do not stop the program from working, but there's an inaccurate result, such as a wrong calculation, perhaps on how much you would owe Amazon for some purchases, or even like a misspelled word that shows up on the screen but doesn't stop the program from running. So looking at my example here, the identified logic error is, if you're a student of my classes, you would know that the second step of the programming process is plan, and therefore that print statement should be up here in between these 2 print statements. So Python does not know that that is an error. Only the person who perhaps took my computer science course would know that plan is the second step of my programming process, although a lot of other instructors would agree. Are there any other logic errors? No, not in the example. If the word understand was misspelled here with 2 T's perhaps, that would be a logic error because it's in the double quotes of the print. So like misspelling hello world, it would not stop the program from executing, but it would be bad. An English teacher or professor wouldn't like it. And neither would I. And I'm just a computer science teacher. Okay, the other third type of error that I think you should know at this point in your career, although some people wouldn't consider this an error specifically, is a coding style violation. Annotate those with a V on this worksheet. I teach good style to people that are learning to code, rather than you develop poor style and then have to undo those habits when you work somewhere or share code with other people. So I do have these rules that are established in my classroom called the coding standards. Students would have to look those up to know exactly what my rules are. But in general, having too much or too little white space, like blank lines or tabs, and choosing bad variable names by typing things with like illogical names like just X instead of something like price, the P-R-I-C-E, just naming it X like you would in algebra, that would be a poor choice of variable name. Coding style violations usually don't stop the program from executing, although in Python they could. Anyway, let's see if there are any B coding style violations in my example here. Yes. The name of the function, steps, should be in lowercase letters, like it is over here to the right in the corrected version. And there should not be a space here between the second S in steps and the left parenthesis. Even though Python would let it execute, it is very non-standard to write, like in algebra, you don't put like an unnecessary space there when you write f of x. We just don't do that. Even though Python doesn't care, your algebra teacher might care. So you would write f of x like this. And similarly over here in your define function, you should not put a space right in there where I drew the arrow. Okay, so moving on here to do a couple of these exercises from this worksheet. And exercise 1. Hey, do I have a volunteer in this Sleepy Period 1 class on a Monday morning that wants to be a famous on YouTube someday? Can anybody identify the error in exercise 1? Yes. Yeah, if you can't hear that, folks, there's no colon, he said. Excellent. So we need to put a colon right there. That's like Python's rule. And then rewrite the whole thing over here for good style, to be complete. 3, 2, 1. So we're back live, and here is the answer over here for the right. DEF, step 1, parentheses, and then of course a colon. Then you must indent. I typically indent 2 spaces. I don't like tabs in this situation. 2 spaces is my standard. And then print, parentheses, double quotes, understand would be the final answer there to the right. Exercise number 2, even though it's not numbered, what is the error there? Volunteer from the front row without putting names on the internet. No, front row, over there to my left. Yes, she said it. Excellent. Everything needs to be lined up, the body here. So basically, you could just do something like this. As a teacher, I'd just say, do that. And so otherwise, Python, oh, that needs to be that's a syntax error over that would stop the program from running. Up here, it was also a syntax error, so you should label that S. Okay, so over here to the right, I'd want you to do this, type it all out, steps, or print it all out with your pencil. I put 2 spaces in there, print, understand, 2 spaces, and that's the idea. Now, you might not have room on this small worksheet. Hopefully you're printing small and you can fit it all in. But at this point, I think the internet audience can see my, so I'm just going to do the old ... trick for now. Now, my students in my class right now should probably write it out just to be perfect. But I'm just going to do the ... That does get across the point that print needed to be indented. And exercise 3. Volunteer. What is wrong with exercise 3? It's similar to exercise 2, so I'm going to skip over it. Now, that is the 4th step of the programming process, so it is not a logic error. Step 4 was meant to be just the 4th step. Just like the number 1 is legal to be in a function name, as long as it's not the first character, like the S. So that was just meant to be the 1st step of the programming process, understand. How about this one right here, where I'm waving my mouse? Students in period 1, 2019-20. Anyone? Yes, Bueller. Front row, Bueller, yes. Yes, no end double quotation after the word document. So it needs the extra little double quote symbol there. And retyping that, and I'm about ready to finish this long video. Define step 5 as a reusable function in a Python program. It's always good to use functions. And document needs to have that double quote right there where I'm waving my mouse. Right there. Okay, so the internet audience can do the rest of this for practice. You need to understand indentation, symbols like colons and double quotes to avoid syntax errors. Always avoid logic errors, although they're hard to find, because if you have bad logic in your head, you're not going to find your own logic error. Sometimes you need a helper, or what's called a test plan. Coding style, that's just a matter of whether your boss or teacher or coworkers are a little bit fussy and expect you to be neat with your code. Till next time.